If there is one thing I never want to find myself having to do in life, it's agreeing with Gene Simmons. Isn't that right, Rocket? Well, apparently that dark day has come because a broken clock is still rich twice of the time. See, on the one hand, with this video, you have to suffer hearing the words of Gene Simmons, but on the other hand, Rocket's here to make you all feel better. Isn't that right? Never mind. So headbang the like button, stage dive onto the subscribe button, and windmill the video to your friends. If you're a fan of the channel and you'd like to show your support, consider becoming a member. Memberships are only 99 cents a month, and each one really helps me toward my goal of creating a life-size Godzilla to invade Canada. Gene Simmons on why he values memorable riffs over virtuosity. Virtuosity, however you say that word. The hardest thing to do is write a good, simple song or riff. In a forthcoming interview with Guitar World, Simmons opened up about his disdain for show-offs in music and his preference for memorable simplicity over complex technical skill. Growing up a big fan of punk rock music, I 100% agree with that sentiment already. Gene says, "I don't consider myself and was never really interested in being a bass virtuoso." Oh, we know, Gene. We're well aware of that. Simmons reflects while discussing his catalog of hits. "I don't like show-offs in music." I'm sorry. Did the guy who flies up in the air spitting blood, shooting fireworks out of his dick, just say that he doesn't like show-offs in music? He says, "I'm much more attracted to things that are memorable. It's part of the joy of music for me." Yes, because if there is one thing that Kiss is not, it's show-offs. I know he's talking about overly technical musicians like Yngwie Malmsteen who are just jerking off their guitars every half a note. I understand that. I'm just saying, bad choice of words. For Simmons, virtuosity is secondary to impact. I agree with that. He's quick to point out that while jazz musicians are respected within musical circles, they lack the broad appeal that resonates with the average listener. You know, I've heard a lot of people say that they don't like jazz, that it just sounds like noise, that it isn't music. I love jazz music. I can sit and listen to jazz like just as much as metal. Gene says, "You can be a jazz player and be respected by musicians, but the rest of the world doesn't care." He adds, "We're going to play a game. Name a jazz player that means something." Miles Davis, John Coltrane, Louis Armstrong. I could do this all day. What are you talking about? Though, of course, most people aren't going to know those. Most people aren't going to even know Gene Simmons. They're going to know Taylor Swift or whatever Adderall-fueled pop star has flooded their Instagram feed at this moment. Citing John McLaughlin as an example, he challenges, "He's a great player, but here's a question. Can you hum any melody that he's ever played on a solo?" Of course not. With all due respect, that music is intended to show off how well you play, but I don't care about that. The hardest thing to do is write a good, simple song or riff. That's really hard. See, it's funny here because I do understand what he's saying. With jazz, you kind of just follow instruments and see how it all connects, but it is a lot going on at the same time. Most people are going to connect with a more simple song that still carries a good groove to it. And honestly, that's what I care about more so. I would rather have a very technically simple song, but that is just grabs you, rather than a song that is the most sophisticated, overly technical piece of guitar virtuoso ever written, but it's just constant waking, jerking off, and it's just, you get exhausted. It's almost like being on a plane for too long and you start passing out. There's plenty of examples of that. Walk by Pantera. Easiest song, whatever, and everyone still loves it and punches their drywall to it. Simmons' critique doesn't stop at jazz musicians. He also mentions renowned bass players like Jaco Pastorius and Flea. I don't know what that first one is. Noting their impressive skills, but questioning their lasting impact of their work. There are an awful lot of amazing bass players like Jaco Pastorius and the Jazz Guys, or guys like Flea, who is really good on his instrument, but I can't remember anything he plays. That's because he's in a shit band. And I also do not like the sound of a bass being slapped. What? Gene Simmons doesn't like to slap at the bass? How are you gonna diss slapping the bass? Real men slap stand-up bass. Go file another lawsuit. For Simmons, the less is more principle is a guiding philosophy, which is what he carried with him since day one through Kiss. He values simplicity that sticks with the listener over technical displays that fade quickly from memory. Really? Have you ever watched your own band play live? Reflecting on this, he recalls an influential comment by by Eric Clapton. Clapton, before he went pop, when he was considered God, he was interviewed and he said something very profound. The hardest thing to do is to know what notes to put in a solo and what notes not to put in a solo. I do love that quote. That's very true. That is a very good thing. That's what they teach you in blues too. It's not the notes you play, it's the notes you don't play. That's why I would prefer something more simplistic but engaging and that has a good groove and feel to it over the most calculated guitar wank fest out there. It's this ethos of keeping it simple yet unforgettable that Simmons believes is key to music's impact. Sometimes if it's shockingly simple and barely moving at all, but I can hum it, that's what matters because it's memorable. I understand that. That's how music has always worked. It's the repetition, it's what gets stuck in your head that makes it really drive in and leave an impact. So I agree with Gene there. I agree with Gene that the music can be simple and it doesn't need to be the most technically skilled thing to be considered good. At the same time, it's kind of hilarious for him to be saying how he prefers musicians to be simplistic and not too showy offy when he's not only in Kiss, he is Kiss. He is the capitalist aspect of Kiss. He always has been. It's just funny to picture Gene Simmons sitting on his gold throne, wearing his demon paint that's covering all of his wrinkles, throwing $100 bills into a flamethrower like confetti because he can, sitting up there going, I don't like when musicians show off. I like when they keep it simple. But when it comes to the substance of what he's talking about here, I do actually agree with the point he's trying to make. I just think it's kind of silly coming from him. But I've always been the type of person who likes how a song feels and the vibes of it, if you want to say that, over how technically complicated is it. But that's just my thoughts. What do you guys think about what Gene Simmons here? Do you give a fuck about what Gene has to say about anything at all? Let me know in the comments below. For more from me, check out my band Dark Insanity. You can find us on Instagram, on Spotify, on all of the streaming platforms, on Bandcamp as well. We have our EP Rabid Psychosis out now. We've got merch available for the channel and for the band. Now you can get White's Metal t-shirts, Savior of Metal hats, Dark Insanity t-shirts, Dark Insanity weed bags. We've got everything. Links for all of my stuff can be found in the description of this video. Anyway, that's it for now, and I'll see you in the next video.